At the beginning of Code Geass, Lelouch v. Britannia seems like someone who already knows exactly what he wants. He's intelligent, he's confident, he's calculating, and he's willing to do almost anything to achieve his goal. But beneath the confidence is a boy carrying years of anger, a boy who lost his mother, a boy who watched his sister become traumatized, a boy who was abandoned by his own father, and most importantly, a boy who wants to know the truth. Lelouch's story isn't simply about revenge. It's about what happens when someone spends their entire life trying to change a world that hurt them, only to slowly realize that changing the world also means changing themselves. This is the character development of Lelouch v. Britannia. Before Lelouch became Zero, before Geass, he was simply Nunnally's older brother. The death of his mother, Marianne, completely changed his life. Lelouch believed that his father, Charles, had failed to protect them. He confronted Charles and demanded answers. But instead of giving Lelouch the truth he wanted, Charles revealed his own vision for the future. A world where lies would no longer exist. To Lelouch, this was almost hypocritical. His father talked about creating a world without lies, while Lelouch still didn't understand the truth behind his mother's death. So Lelouch made a decision. If his father wouldn't change the world, he would, and that's where his journey begins. It's easy to say Lelouch simply wanted revenge. But revenge isn't the entire story. His deepest motivation is Nunnally. He wants to create a world where she can live peacefully. At the same time, he wants to destroy the system that took away their childhood. So his goals become connected. Find the truth. Destroy Britannia. Protect Nunnally. Create a better world. And this is important because Lelouch genuinely believes his actions have a purpose. He doesn't wake up thinking, I want to become evil. He thinks, someone has to do this. And that belief becomes both his greatest strength and one of his greatest weaknesses. When Lelouch receives Geass, everything changes. For the first time, he has the power to fight against a system far more powerful than himself. But Lelouch understands something immediately. He can't do it as Lelouch v. Britannia. So he creates Zero. At first, Zero is simply a mask, a way to hide his identity, a way to frighten his enemies, a way to command people. But something unexpected happens. People begin believing in Zero. The Black Knights don't just follow Lelouch, they follow a symbol. And this is where Lelouch begins changing from an individual seeking revenge into a leader responsible for thousands of people. Early Lelouch approaches conflict like a chess game. He studies the battlefield, predicts his opponent, sacrifices pieces, creates traps, and calculates the outcome. This makes him incredibly effective, but it also reveals his biggest flaw. He sometimes forgets that people aren't chess pieces. People have emotions. They have their own goals. They can betray him. They can misunderstand him. They can make decisions he never predicted. Lelouch's intelligence allows him to control situations, but his obsession with control creates distance between himself and everyone around him, and eventually, that distance comes back to hurt him. This becomes especially clear through Suzaku. Lelouch and Suzaku want similar things. They both want a better world, but they believe in completely different methods. Lelouch wants to destroy the system. Suzaku wants to change it from within. Lelouch believes results matter most. Suzaku believes the methods matter too. Their conflict isn't simply hero versus villain. It's two people asking the same question. How do you change an unjust world? And both of them slowly discover that their original answers aren't perfect. Lelouch learns that achieving a goal doesn't automatically justify everything he does. Suzaku learns that simply following rules doesn't automatically make something right. And their relationship becomes one of the most important parts of Lelouch's development. For a while, Lelouch's plans seem almost unstoppable, but eventually, his actions begin creating consequences he can't control. People around him suffer. His enemies become more dangerous. His friends begin questioning him, and then comes Euphemia. Her death becomes a turning point. Lelouch's Geass causes a tragedy he never intended. For perhaps the first time, Lelouch is forced to confront something terrifying. He isn't always in control. His plans can fail. His abilities can have unintended consequences, and innocent people can suffer because of his decisions. This changes him. The revolution is no longer simply an exciting game of strategy. Now it has a real human cost. Zero was supposed to be Lelouch's mask, but eventually, Lelouch begins becoming Zero. Zero has to be confident. Zero cannot show weakness. Zero must make difficult decisions. Zero must always appear to know what he's doing. But Lelouch himself is still a teenager carrying enormous emotional pressure. This creates a conflict between the person he really is and the person everyone expects him to be. And the more secrets he keeps, the more isolated he becomes. Lelouch believes that keeping people away from the truth protects them. He thinks, if I carry the burden myself, they won't have to suffer. But there's a problem. You can't build trust while constantly hiding the truth. His relationships begin breaking down. The Black Knights question him. People close to him discover that he has been manipulating situations behind their backs. And eventually, Lelouch loses something he desperately needed: trust. This is one of the biggest lessons of his character development. Being strong doesn't mean carrying everything alone. Sometimes strength means trusting other people enough to share the burden. CC is different. She sees through Zero. She understands that beneath the mask is someone lonely, angry, and afraid of losing the people he loves. Their relationship becomes important because Lelouch finally has someone who understands the person behind the performance. CC doesn't simply see Zero. She sees Lelouch. And slowly, Lelouch begins to understand that being understood isn't weakness. He doesn't always have to be alone. This is where Lelouch's development becomes most important. At the beginning, he asks, "How do I destroy Britannia?" Later, he starts asking, "What happens after Britannia falls?" That's a completely different question. Destroying something is easy compared to building something better. Lelouch begins realizing that his revolution isn't only about winning. It's about what kind of world comes afterward. His goal slowly moves away from personal revenge and toward creating a future where people don't have to live through the same hatred that shaped him. And this brings us back to Charles. Lelouch hated his father because Charles represented a world of manipulation and lies, but Lelouch eventually becomes surrounded by lies himself. He creates Zero. He hides his identity. He manipulates people. He keeps secrets. He decides what others should know. The boy who hated being lied to becomes someone who lies constantly. This contradiction is extremely important. Lelouch doesn't simply defeat Charles. He has to confront the possibility that he is becoming like him. The difference is that Lelouch eventually recognizes the consequences. He begins to understand that having power doesn't make him automatically right. And finally, we reach the Zero Requiem. Whatever you think about Lelouch's final plan, it represents the culmination of his development. The boy who originally wanted revenge creates a plan centered around the future. The boy who hated being controlled chooses his own fate. The boy who spent years hiding behind Zero eventually uses Zero to create something beyond himself. And the boy who wanted to protect Nunnally finally understands that he can't simply control the world on her behalf. He has to create a future where she and everyone else can choose their own lives. The Zero Requiem doesn't erase Lelouch's mistakes. It doesn't make everything he did morally correct. But it shows that he finally accepts responsibility for the path he chose. There's something almost poetic about Lelouch's journey. He starts by searching for the truth about his mother's death. He spends years fighting against lies. He creates a mask. He becomes Zero. He lies to almost everyone. And eventually, his final plan is built around one enormous lie. But there's a crucial difference. At the beginning, Lelouch lies because he wants to control the situation. At the end, he uses the final lie to give the world a chance to move forward without him. That's the transformation. His actions become less about, "What do I want?" and more about, "What happens to everyone else because of what I want?" Lelouch's story gives us several important lessons. 1. Intelligence isn't wisdom. Being able to calculate 10 moves ahead doesn't mean you understand people. 2. Good intentions don't guarantee good outcomes. Lelouch often wants to protect people, but his methods can still hurt them. 3. You can't control everything. Even the best plan can collapse because of one unexpected event. 4. People aren't chess pieces. Everyone has their own emotions, goals, and choices. 5. Isolation isn't strength. Lelouch becomes stronger when he learns to rely on others. 6. Growth doesn't mean becoming perfect. Lelouch continues making mistakes, but he becomes more aware of them. 7. Responsibility is part of power. If your choices affect other people, you have to accept the consequences. Lelouch's character development isn't the story of a perfect genius becoming a hero. It's the story of a damaged young man trying to change the world. He begins with anger. He searches for the truth. He seeks revenge. He creates Zero. He builds an army. He makes mistakes. He loses people. He loses trust. He becomes increasingly isolated. And eventually, he realizes that changing the world isn't just about defeating your enemies. It's about taking responsibility for the world you create afterward. Lelouch spends most of Code Geass trying to control everything around him. But his final growth comes when he accepts something he struggled with from the beginning. He can't control everything. He can only choose what he stands for. And that's why the Lelouch we see at the end is so different from the boy we met at the beginning. Not because he became smarter, Not because he became stronger, but because he finally understood the cost of his own choices. He started by wanting to change the world. And in the process, the world changed him. That is the character development of Lelouch v. Britannia. And perhaps that's why his story remains unforgettable